Okay, folks, as promised, I'm going to give you a rough idea of how many felonies were committed by simply false detaining me / imprisoning me, kidnapping me, and then writing and filing that false arrest and booking report. This is the Florida Department of Law Enforcement's This is off of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement website. This is the officer requirements, the law enforcement officer ethical standards of conduct. There are 37 of them. Now what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start scrolling down, and every single one that you see circled, they violated prior to even arresting me, or what they're calling arresting. And there is one that we're going to take a real close look at real quick. 2.5. Police officers must obey. This is where we're at right here. Police officers must obey lawful orders, but must refuse to obey any orders the officer knows would require the officer to commit an illegal act. You know, like falsely detain / imprison someone and then kidnap them. If in doubt as to the clarity of an order, the officer shall, if feasible, request the issuing officer to clarify the order. An officer refusing to obey an order shall be required to justify his or her actions. So they have to give it a reason as to why they didn't do it. So there is no reason why any of this was done to me. Again, there are 37 of these, and they violated 19 of them. Okay, 19. Every single one that you see circled has been violated. Now, I'm also on here because I have been saying that they are ministers of God. This is, again, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement ethical standard. This is what they swear by. This is the oath that they take. And I'm going to move it over a little bit so you can read along with me. Okay? As an officer, as a law enforcement officer, my fundamental duty is to serve mankind, to safeguard lives and property, to protect the innocent against deception, the weak against oppression or intimidation, and the peaceful against violence or disorder, and to respect the constitutional rights of all men to liberty, equality, and justice. I will keep my private life unsullied as an example to all, maintain courageous calm in the face of danger, scorn, or ridicule, develop self-restraint, and be constantly mindful to the welfare of others, honest in thought and deed in both my personal and official life. I will be exemplary in obeying the laws of the land and the regulations of my department. Whatever I see or hear of a confidential nature or that is confided to me in my official capacity will be kept ever secret unless revelation is necessary in the performance of my duty. I will never act officiously or permit personal feelings, prejudices, animosity, or friendships to influence my decisions. With no compromise for crime and with relentless prosecution of criminals, I will enforce the law courteously and appropriately, without fear or favor, malice or ill will, never employing unnecessary force or violence, and never accepting gratuities. I recognize the badge of my office as a symbol of public faith, and I accept it as a public trust to be held so long as I am true to the ethics of the police service. I will constantly strive to achieve these objectives and ideals, dedicating myself before God to my chosen profession, law enforcement. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the very same thing that every born-again believer, everyone that has given their heart to Jesus Christ, that is exactly what we do. As I said before, Romans chapter 13, this describes to a T exactly what Romans 13 says. They are an appointed authority and they have chosen to accept it, dedicating themselves before God, making an oath to Almighty God. So they are not, if a law enforcement officer does not follow these guidelines, they are mocking God, and God is not mocked. Just wanted to lay that out to you. But again, they have violated 19 of these 37 ethical standards, code of conduct, law enforcement officer ethical standards of conduct. Okay? Now, we're gonna now take a look at the number of felonies that were committed both before and resulting in the arrest or the writing of the arrest and booking report, because it was a false arrest and booking report. Right off the bat. And remember, they're all acting in conjunction. They have no excuse for allowing this to happen. As I already showed you, they do not have to obey an order that makes them commit a crime. So what they all did is, because they had detained me, as soon as they called me over to their vehicle and then said, "Hey, you're under arrest," they all false detainment and imprisonment, because they knew I had committed no crime. So that is 6 third-degree felonies, because they were all involved in it. There were 6 officers. Right then and there, they all lost their jobs. It takes one felony count for a law enforcement officer to be banned from serving. They become a criminal. They can never, ever be a part of any type of law enforcement agency, correction agency. The best thing that they can possibly be is a security guard at Walmart. Okay? You cannot have criminals in law enforcement. Cannot happen. So, as soon as they as soon as they said, "Hey, you're under arrest," well, it was actually before that, but that's when they knew they just lost their jobs. So in order to keep their jobs, they falsely detained me for 2.5 hours and handcuffed in the back of a police car while they tried to coerce me into admitting that I was at the very least trying to commit a crime. I said not one word. Not one word. Period. So they then kidnapped me. They took me to the jail. And with kidnapping is a first-degree felony. A third-degree felony is the lowest degree of felony. A first-degree felony is the highest degree of felony other than a capital felony, other than a murder, okay? Other than a capital crime, okay? But it is the highest degree of felony. So by all of them agreeing to, again, any one of them could have stood up and said, "You know what? I may lose my job, but I'm not gonna mock God. I have dedicated myself to God to do the right thing. and yet they all chose to ignore their oath to Almighty God, thereby kidnapping me, and they did this simply to save their job. To save their job. That's 6 first-degree felonies, because they all took part in it. Because the 19 FDLE ethical standards of conduct were violated during the commission of these 2 felonies, makes each violation of the ethical standards of conduct both a third degree and a first-degree felony, meaning they committed an additional 114 third-degree felonies and additional 114 first-degree felonies. So far, there have been 120 third-degree felonies and 120 first-degree felonies, giving us 240 felonies. And I'm not even at the jail yet. Think about that for a minute. Now, when they wrote the arrest and booking report, this is it. There was no reason to write this. But by having it written, by allowing it to be written, I have here, it says that there's 29 acts of obstruction. Every line, every piece of information that they put down there, they don't have to put there is no need for any of it, because I committed no crime. This whole document is a lie. This statute is a real statute, but it does not apply. There's no victim. This statute is a real statute, but it does not apply. It was not violated. This statute cannot be attempted. Kind of like giving somebody a ticket for attempted speeding. Okay? Every piece of information that they write, the arresting officers complete the unshaded areas. All of the white areas are completed by the arresting officers. Okay? There's no need for any of this to be here. Therefore, every piece of information that they put down is obstruction. It's a violation. They are obstructing justice. It is criminal action under color of law. Okay? And because there are 29 acts of them, all 6 criminals are committing it. Even though there's just 2 people, 1 or 2 people writing this in the white, they are all, it's as if they are all writing it because they are allowing it to take place, because there is no need for this to happen. The only reason why they're doing it is to save their jobs. That means that every line, every one of these 29 acts of obstruction is 20 felonies. 1 felony is the obstruction felony. The 19 felonies are the 19, they violated all 19 of those ethical standards of conduct with every single stroke of their pen. Okay? That gives us 3,480 felonies for their part in the writing of the arrest and booking report, giving us 3,720 felonies, first degree and third degree felonies that have been committed so far. And I'm not even done being booked yet. Why do I say that? Every single one of these officers looks at this and signs off on it. They are acting as individuals. So now it's a new criminal act being done to me. There are 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the verified officer down here. 6. Okay? With every single signature. Because they have to look at it. Remember, there's checks and balances that these people go through. Okay? With every single signature, what happens is all of these 3,720 crimes, felonies, are committed upon me, as well as each of these officers it's basically each officer that signed this is obstructing justice because they're looking at it. It's their job to know that this is not right. Okay? So in order to sign it, they got to look at it. This is part of their job. This is part of the checks and balances. Okay? So every officer that signs this commits one act of obstruction and then re-violates all of these 19 FDLE statutes, or not statutes, FDLE standards of conduct. So, which with every act, every signature, they are committing 20 felonies, one act of obstruction, and because these standards of conduct are violated during the commission of a felony, they become felonies. So that's 20 felonies. In addition, all of these 3,720 felonies are recommitted. So they double. So this number is going to double plus 20 for every single signature. That happens 6 times. That means after the first person signed it, there was 7,460 felonies committed upon me. The second, as soon as the second person signed, law enforcement officer signed it, there were 14,940 felonies committed upon me. The third guy, after the third individual signed it, 29,900 first and third degree felonies were committed upon me. After the fourth individual signed it, 59,820 first and third degree felonies were committed upon me. After the fifth guy signed it, we're up to 119,660 first and third degree felonies. And then by the time that the verifying officer signed it, he committed 239,340 felonies. All because it is a lie. Now, why? If they were just regular people, it would just be one other count. But they're not regular people, folks. They are law enforcement officers. We just read what they have to go by. They are ministers. It's their job to make sure that this doesn't happen to anyone, and they are the ones doing it. Therefore, they are allowing this crime to take place. Therefore, they are recommitting all of those crimes. Now, what that means is from this point, as soon as they handed this over to the state attorney's office, as soon as the state attorney's office did not do anything and filed it, pursued charges, that number doubled. And it doubles every single time. Every single time an attorney or a judge takes any type of illegal action against me, they are recommitting every single crime. Every single felony is redone to me. So think about that. Every piece of paper that's filed, because there is no need for any of it to be done, because this is all a lie. And it was all done simply so these 6 original officers would keep their job. Now, does this sound like people that you should trust? Now, they found out how deep of a ditch that they were in after I had been locked up with real felons for 3 days. And they still have chosen nothing to do about it. And again, folks, it only takes one felony for a law enforcement officer, an attorney, and a judge to stop being a law enforcement officer, an attorney, and a judge. The attorneys and judges are disbarred. Right there. It's probably in the millions, folks. And everything that I just explained to you, they know. That's why they're scared.